And I've got this electric top loader. I've got two sizes, a large kiln and a small kiln. I tend to use the large one most of the time, but the small one is very useful when I've just got small quantities of work to fire. The kiln's just been fired and it's cooling down, and I'm about to unpack it. And as I said, it's been fired and it's on 121 degrees. I've opened it a little bit to try and speed up the cooling down, but now it's on just over 100 degrees. It's going to be all right to unload. I try and pack this as tightly as I can. On this occasion, I haven't been able to completely fill it, so there's a little bit of space around some of the pots. But they should be ready to bring out now. They're still a little bit too hot to pick up by hand, but I've got some gloves here. They're not particularly good gloves, they're just thin cotton gloves, but I reckon if I can pick them up with these, then they're cool enough to get out the kiln. It's always quite an exciting time taking work out of the kiln, because although I've got a pretty good idea about how it's going to look, I never really know. So I sort of know like 90% about what it's going to look like. But it's always great to get it out and actually see what I imagined might have happened, has happened. I'm not going to spend too long looking at these and just analysing them as I take them out of the kiln. I'm going to get them out, and then I'm going to take them into the studio and have a real proper good look at them. I can feel they're still pretty hot through these gloves, but I always think if they're cool enough to pick up, then they're cool enough to get out of the kiln. There's a variety of different clays that I've used here. There's some that are made with a terracotta clay, like this one. The clay is still showing through here. It's always quite exciting. It's always quite a relief as well, actually. That's a nice one. So I've taken all of the work out of the kiln and I've brought them here into the studio. And because all of my work is very individual, what I find is that I need to look at each one carefully and decide what I'm going to do with it. Some of them I will want to refire. I might want to add little bits of extra glaze or underglaze and put them back into the kiln. Others I might think are finished, which is great. There'll probably be other pieces as well that I can't decide about. So I'm going to just go through each one and have a good look at them and decide what I'm going to do with each of them individually. As soon as I took this one out of the kiln, I knew I quite liked it. I think sometimes you've got to be careful of those first impressions, but there are definitely things in this pot that I really like. Particularly, I think it's because it's made with this terracotta clay, and the colours that I've put over the clay work well with the colour of the clay that you can still see in places, so that terracotta still comes through. So particularly at the top here, where it's got this sort of wash of pink engobe, and there's also a little bit of green engobe in there as well, but then it's got the terracotta colour as a background. As well as that, there's a nice sort of section here that I like as well. That bit of glossy glaze goes well. There's sort of two different tones of blue that work well side by side. It's got a lovely texture too. I think part of the thing about taking these pots out of the kiln and looking at them is also it's also picking them up and feeling them as well, feeling the weight and the texture of them. But I think this one's finished. This piece has got some really thick black slip that I've put on to the surface of the pot here, and it's very gritty. It's got a lovely texture. There's a little bit of glossy glaze there as well, which you can just see if I just move it in the light. It just picks up the reflection a little bit. There's also a nice little bit of flashing down at the bottom here, where I've used some oxides that I'd normally put on the inside of a pot, but I've used it on the outside, and it's just a slightly different sort of dark colour that goes with the black slip. The edge is nice too. I deliberately left the edge of the slab of clay showing, and it gives it quite an irregular outline. It's got a blue glaze inside. I think that little bit of additional colour on the inside helps the piece overall. There's not that much colour on the outside, but you just, when you're looking at it, you just get that little edge of blue. So again, that's another piece that I think is going to go in the group that I would call finished. There's another one that's made of the terracotta clay. I like these lines. It reminds me, when I look at the pot now, it's been fired, it reminds me what I was thinking when I was making it, and I wanted some quite expressive monoprint, sort of scribbly lines, and I think they've come out really quite nicely, and particularly where there's a little bit of clear glaze along the top edge. Where that goes over those lines, it makes the clay a little bit darker. And again, it's another tactile feature. It's another thing that you appreciate by touching as well. So yes, that one's finished too. This one is quite an unusual shape for me. It was a bit of an experiment, and this is one that I will have to live with, to think about what I'm going to do with it and whether I want to make more pieces like that. It was really a development of something like this, where I'd overlapped the edge, well, so that the side piece was sort of set back a little bit, and it just meant that these edges sort of stuck out a bit. But then I thought I could maybe like take that to a greater extent with a pot like this. Maybe it's gone a bit too far. It's got these sort of spaces inside it which are quite interesting. So that piece will just be, I'm going to leave that around in the studio for a while and see what I think about that. This is one that is made using a more sort of conventional slab building technique. I made quite a few pots like this that have got these sort of two sections, and I always like the sort of contrasting sections, making different textures and marks on each half. This side has got a glaze on it, this side's got a yellow on gobe. I think the two colours, I'm really happy with the way those go together. I always think it's important somehow to link the two halves, and what I've done here is use this black grog that is in both sides. So there's just that element that doesn't stop at the join there, that flows from one side into the other, and that just helps to give the whole sort of composition of the piece a bit of coherence. And here's a larger pot. It's got a good feel to it, this one. It's got a sort of bit of weight to it, and I put a lot of grog around the top edge of this, and that's got a nice texture to it as well, and that sort of rough surface goes well with the rough outline. So I've just left the clay with a sort of very natural edge around the top, which sort of mirrors the texture. I've already decided that I'm going to put a bit of red glaze on that, and that's what this, although it looks green at the moment, that's going to go red in the kiln when it's refired. But there's an important little bit of green here as well that will just contrast that red colour. I put the black on when it was quite watery, and it's created these runs in the bottom here which are still visible, which I like. I like being able to sort of, I like that it's not all black, that it sort of fades out at the bottom, and you can see a little bit of that pink colour coming through. Yep, happy with that. So overall, there are going to be some pieces that I refire. There are others that are finished. But this group that I've made, overall I'm really pleased with it, and I'm going to select some of these pieces that are going to go onto my next online exhibition, which is going to be on Friday the 18th of November. So I hope you're able to have a look at that. Others are going to go out to different galleries, but I think it's a group of work that I'm really pleased with, and I'm going to be pleased to sort of put it out there and show people. Thank you.